Today we're going to make sweet crepes with vanilla pastry cream and chocolate sauce. This is a yearly favorite of our students, so we're happy to share it with you. So let's start with our vanilla pastry cream, which is also known as a custard. Here is our mise en place: 1 cup of milk, half of a vanilla bean with 3 tablespoons of sugar, 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch, 3 egg yolks, and our equipment is a whisk, a rubber spatula, a paring knife, and a bowl with plastic wrap. And we're going to cook it into a small sauce pot. This should be stainless steel and a non-reactive pot. So here we're going to take our vanilla bean and carefully slice it open with our paring knife. Scrape the beans out from the inside and now place that with your milk. Our milk is going to go into our pot, and I always hold back just about a tablespoon of milk. We're going to begin to heat that up with half of our sugar. Give that a stir. Now the other half of our sugar is going to go with our egg yolks. And then we're going to take our milk and put it with our cornstarch. So we're essentially dissolving the cornstarch and creating a slurry. That will go together now with the milk, and make sure that you mix really well. So we're waiting for our our milk to come to a boil. So every so often just give it a quick stir so it doesn't burn or scorch on the bottom. And once it starts to simmer or come to a slight boil, we're going to turn the heat off. And now we will temper the hot liquid into our eggs. Pour some in, give it a mix, bring the temperature up, and now pour it back into the pan and continue to whisk vigorously until our custard has thickened into a pudding. So we want to temper our egg yolks back into the pot, because if we were to just pour the cold eggs into the hot milk, you run a chance of it curdling on you. So if you add just a little bit of hot milk, you can slowly bring the temperature up, and then you can gently heat it and bring it into the pan to now cook until it becomes thick like a pudding. Make sure you get into the corners so that nothing burns or has an odd texture, because you want to keep it mixing really well so that everything is nice and smooth and even. So again, we're looking for some slight bubbles to happen. We want that to now cook for about 45 seconds to a minute when it starts to boil like that. And that will cook the starches out and make sure that our temperature is high enough to sanitize the eggs and also set them. So now we'll take our butter and we will add it into our pastry cream. So if you didn't have vanilla beans, you could avoid the vanilla beans at the beginning and put now at the end, when the heat is off, you can add your vanilla extract. But we had that vanilla bean, so let's take that out of there. Our butter is mixed in, so now it has a nice smooth finish. And now we'll take a rubber spatula and we'll place this into a shallow bowl. Make sure we get everything out of the pan. And then we're going to place plastic wrap right on the surface. So we want to make sure that the custard itself doesn't form a thick skin, and that will happen when hot liquid meets the cold air. So now let's make our crepes. So we're going to use 1/3 cup plus a tablespoon of all-purpose flour, 1 egg, half a cup of milk, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter. To begin, we'll put our flour into a mixing bowl. We're going to add our sugar and mix that together. Our next step is to take our egg and to combine that with our milk. So we want to combine basically our wet ingredients and our dry ingredients separately, and then we'll do a process of bringing them together. So make sure you break up the yolk, break up the egg whites, mix it well into the milk. And now we're going to work on incorporating it into our dry mix of flour and sugar. So I take about 1/3 of the mixture and I moisten the dough, and I actually kind of make it into a paste where I can get all of the lumps out, make it nice and smooth. Then I'll add in the next 1/3 of my liquid, bring that together. So now you can see it's starting to form into a batter, which is much thinner and pourable. And then we'll pour our last 1/3 in. And now we've incorporated our wet and dry ingredients together and have eliminated any lumps of flour. So now after we have now mixed this vigorously, we've developed lots of gluten, so we need to allow this to rest. So we're going to cover it with some plastic wrap and allow it to rest at room temperature for about 30 minutes. Now that it has had time to rest, we're going to start the next step, which is going to be adding our melted butter into our batter. Also during that resting period, the remainder of the flour absorbs any liquid, and so at this point, if you do need to adjust the consistency, if the batter is too thick, after you add your butter, you certainly can put in a teaspoon to a tablespoon at a time of extra milk if you need to adjust the consistency. But you can see here we have a nice fluid, pourable batter. And here we're going to add just a little bit of vanilla for that nice flavoring. And here, there you go. You can see that it's a nice pourable, thin batter. So typically you want to use a non-stick pan for this process. I don't have one at home, so I'm going to just use a stainless steel pan. I'm going to make sure it's well greased. It also, the batter has enough butter in it that will also keep it from sticking. So you can make this if you don't have a non-stick pan. I'm going to ladle about an ounce of batter into the pan, and we want to move quickly. So if you notice, I'm tilting and turning the pan very quickly to move the batter so that I don't have any thick spots. So you want to make it a nice even consistency. And what we're looking for is for some bubbles to start to form and for it to go from a wet look to like a matte look, and then we're also looking for our edges to start to brown. Once this happens, then we can carefully take our rubber spatula, start to loosen it, and then we'll be able to flip over our crepe and cook it on the other side for about another 30 seconds. So we're looking for that nice lacy golden brown. The first crepe usually never comes out perfect. As the pan heats up and the heat starts to balance, you'll see that you'll get a more balanced, lacy looking crepe as you continue to cook. So now I'm going to use the rest of my batter and I'm going to make the remainder. So I should get anywhere from about 6 to 8 crepes when I'm finished. It really just depends on how much you are pouring in at a time. And if you have a 1 ounce ladle, that will help you measure it more evenly. Here you can see that I'm doing it more with a gravy ladle, but I kind of have a good eye for knowing how much to put in. All right, so there is our final, this one we broke a little bit, well, I'll show you how to fix that. So now we're on to our chocolate sauce. We are going to take a tablespoon of water and we're just going to heat it up slightly. So this is going to go very quickly. Just heat it up till we start to see those bubbles. Turn the heat off and now add in 1 ounce of chocolate. I just use chocolate chips, but any fine quality chocolate will work. And with the heat off, I want to stir in the chocolate. Very quickly it's going to melt from that hot water. If I had the flame still on, there's a chance I could scorch or burn my chocolate. I could also cause it to separate. So we want to always do this with the heat off. And now we have a nice sauce. And it should be nice and fluid. If you needed to add in a few more drops of water just to adjust the consistency, you most certainly could at this point. We want to keep that warm until we're ready to use it. Now let's assemble. So we have crepes, we have pastry cream, we have chocolate sauce. We are also going to need a parchment cone, and we're going to need scissors and an offset spatula. If you don't have these items, you can use a Ziploc bag, and you can just use your back of a spoon to spread if you didn't have a offset spatula. So here we took our cut piece, our cut triangle of parchment paper. We found the right angle. We then created a cone and then twisted the rest of the paper around, brought it together and cinched it. And this will serve as our piping bag. Takes a little bit of practice to do those. Now we're going to take our crepes and we're going to flip them over. So the second side that was cooked, we want that to be the inside. And the lacy side, we want that to be the outside. And I'm purposely using the broken one here so I can show you how we can continue to use it and hide the imperfections. So you're going to take about, this is probably close to 2 tablespoons, tablespoon and a half of pastry cream. Put it on each one. Take your offset spatula and just spread it nice and evenly. Like I said, here you can use a spoon if you didn't have an offset spatula. Just spread it out nice and evenly. And this way, every bite of your dessert will have a nice amount of pastry cream. You don't want to over and you don't want to underfill it. Now we're going to fold these in half, and then we're going to fold them into quarters. But you can see now the lacy outside is what's going to be the presentation. That broken one, just fold it in, fold it over, nobody's ever going to know. And then our last one. So typically you'll serve 2 to 3 crepes per person for dessert. 3 is a little bit heavy of a dessert, so it really just depends on your meal, how many you want to serve. But 2 to 3 works. And I want to make sure I keep the prettiest one up front that has the nicest lacing. All right. So our next step is going to be moving on to the chocolate sauce. So we want to make sure it's nice and fluid, right? Nice and liquid, nice and fluid. It shouldn't be too thin where it's going to run, but it shouldn't be too thick where it's going to set up very quickly on us. Carefully spoon it into the paper cone or the paper cornet, fill it up halfway, and you'll see that there's a line on the back. You want to actually take that and you want to roll the bag away from that line, and this will make it nice and tight so the bag doesn't fall apart on you. Okay, now we're going to take our scissors and cut a very small tip, and we can just practice on the side to see how nice and fluid it's going to be. And now very carefully, just take your time to do a nice design. So this is really simple. This is nothing too difficult to do. Just nice and back and forth, nice and easily. Keep it nice and clean and neat. And that's your final dessert. If you had strawberries, that would be a great accompaniment to this. I did not at the moment, so this is just vanilla and chocolate. And here's another design. You can roll them up and serve it that way as well. And here with a little extra chocolate sauce, I thought it would be fun to show you how to do some writing. Just had to switch the bag here midway, but with nice fluid chocolate, you can easily write on birthday cakes and on desserts. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you.